Yeah, so we're looking at the third movement, but it's an 8-chord cycle, but it also comes back in the fourth movement, right before the very last chord. So first, let's just give it a listen. And at the end, I want you to sing Do. Who thinks they might have it? Kind of in between a B and a C. Yeah, do you want to give it one more shot? We'll do it a little faster. What's that?
Can we say no at the beginning?
Yeah, let's try that. Very good. That time. But yeah, does it feel like it does not? Yeah, it's more of a tonal memory than anticipation. But so there's a little bit of issue with how would you put Roman numerals to this. So that's the progression I just played. So let's just go through it. I'll give you. Okay. Yes. I have to deal with the mouse holding my little pointer there. All right, what's after that?
5.
Yeah, next.
5, 6, 4, 5.
All right. What about the next chord?
It's a
It's a 7 diminished 7 of 1?
Yeah. Or just, if it's of 1, then what would that be called?
Well, 7 is diminished.
Yeah, so first of all, how would you deal with this chord? It's not too out of place. Yeah, just put a little key on it. Okay, now what about the next chord? First, let's just name what would you call the chord, just in like a popular chord symbol.
The G major 7. Like
Yeah.
she just said.
Yeah, what did you say, Molly?
G major 7.
Yeah.
Jazzers. And then it's over F sharp. So how would that fit into B flat minor? We'll analyze this that for now. What about the next chord? What chord is that? Yeah, good. And what's in the bass? Or no, sorry,
Yeah.
G is in the bass.
G minor,
But
what, 8 or 7?
Yeah, 8 or 7. And then, so does anyone have an idea how that might function in B flat minor? That one probably has a little bit of a function. Let's put another little question mark on that. We're not the only ones putting question marks on those two chords. So what about the next chord?
A minor.
Yeah. And how would you analyze that in
Those
B
would be-
flat?
7.
Yeah. Yeah, just a minor 7.
7. It's weird.
Yeah. And then, so what about this last chord? What do we have there? This is where the real problem is, I think.
We feel there's more problems.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a bigger problem.
Sharp one.
Sharp one, maybe?
Well, why not just make stuff up?
Right.
Acceptable.
But it's diminished.
Yeah, so what's the...
B natural, D natural, and F.
Sharp
B
one.
diminished one. Or
Yeah, sharp diminished
sharp diminished one.
Well, I think the sharp one would make it.
Or a 7 of 2.
Why is
Make
it-
it diminished word.
Yeah, 7 and
That's so
2.
weird.
Yeah, what do you think? Does anybody else have any other...
7 of 2.
Do we agree that it's diminished?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can at least agree that it's rather problematic once it gets past the first 4 chords. You could imagine, just like we did, these 4 chords going right back to B flat. But Leskovich does something really different. How do I get out of, there we go. Okay, so this is what QC and his Music Theory Online. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Looks like that's even
So this is how he analyzed it. He did B flat minor, 1, 5, just like we did. And then he just leaves these blank and basically puts in, if you read his paper, it's basically question marks, just like we did under there. And then he goes to the key of E, or E minor, and it's a 4, 5 progression. But he sees this as minor, but then also becoming diminished. So it's like in E minor, you have a minor 4 to a minor 5 that's kind of actually really diminished 5. But the problem also is that it goes back to the original tonic. So in the key of B flat, he has it unlabeled on the A minor, and then a Neapolitan minor that's in root position, and then a diminished Neapolitan that's somewhat axis dominant 2-1. So it's difficult to really communicate what the function is in those last 4 chords. But there's another way that I think is perhaps a little better, and it's a lot prettier at least. So it's called a Tonnetz, and that's German for tonal network. And it's just a laying pitches out on a space and navigating with it. It's Hugo Riemann made a Tonnetz. Have you studied Riemann in this class? Okay. But so I won't get into that. But instead of what do Roman numerals show? What is the purpose of a Roman numeral? Yeah, function to what?
Harmonic.
Yeah.
Yeah, like every Roman
Yeah,
numeral
equal
is
to
according to
1.
tonic, or according to 1. So 5, it's 5 of 1. So here we're actually not concerned so much with the function to tonic, but the function between neighboring chords. So how do 2 chords move right beside each other instead of how did those 2 chords relate back to the original tonic? So a word that's also often thrown around is parsimony, and that basically means economical voice leading, or move as few notes as possible. And then transformation is when you go from one spot on the Tonnetz to another, as we'll see, and it's basically the method in which it goes about doing that. So, all right, so I did put the things, but there's 3 basic operators, and we call them Riemannian operators or neo-riemannian operators. So if we take a C major chord and we move the C, we move the E down 1/2 step of the C, E, and G. What chord do we have?
C minor.
Good, so that's called a P operation, or parallel minor. So it's keeping 2 chords the same and then moving only 1/2 step. So that's a P, and then if you take the C chord again and you move the G up 1 whole step, what chord do you get?
A minor. First inversion.
Yeah, and we're also really not concerned that much with inversions, but so C to A is just 1 movement of 1 finger, and that is the R operator for relative. So we have P and R. And there's one more. If you take the C of the C major and move it down 1/2 step, what chord do you get there?
E minor.
Yeah. And that's called a leading tone exchange or a Lichtenbechel. And I'll show you in just a second. Yeah, L operator. So if you're ever reading a music theory paper and you see a bunch of L's, P's, and R's, that's what it means. When I was originally researching it, I couldn't find anywhere what those letters meant. But what I have here is a Tonnetz, and I used pitch class numbers instead of letters because inharmonically I don't want to write out 2 pitches every time there's a sharp and a flat. So let's find our little C major chord. We have it right here, 0, 7, and 4. So that's C, E, and G. So you can see if we're sharing 2 pitches and we move one down, we have C minor. But the way this is laid out is you have perfect fifths going this way, and you have major thirds going this way, which means you have fourths going this way and minor thirds going that way. If that makes sense. So if you go this way, these are all augmented triads, and this way, these are all diminished triads or tetrachords. And then triangles that point up are major chords, and triangles that point down are minor chords. And that's really important with this type of analysis because there's a concept called dualism where it's like opposite. Like you have C major, and the opposite, you can just see the literal reflection is C minor there. So yeah, you have the P operation, and then you have the L operation, and then if we had it down here, that would be the, or no. Yeah, down here, there should be a, where's my 9? Okay, there would be a 9 right here, and that would be our R operation. But let's look at how we can, oh yeah, first, that actually, if you see repeated numbers, you see a 0 and a 0, 6 and 6. All of those are actually the same place because we're looking at octave equivalence, which means a C is a C no matter where in the register it is. So you can actually fold this up into a torus, which looks like a donut. And that's a 3D model. You can see the different pitches wrapping around here. And this is a little bit more concise. That's like the minimal number of pitches that can wrap all around. Yeah, it's cool. Actually, this is one of the competing ideas for the shape of the universe. So I think like the Big Bang happened and it like enveloped around and made a torus. So it's pretty cool.
How did we get here?
It was, yeah. Our essence is really a donut. Yeah, so back to the Shostakovich. So a few people have figured out that if you look at just the bass notes alone, you have these 4 notes which indicate B flat minor, and you have these 4 which indicates E minor. So if you can think of it, just disregard the upper voices for now. Then it goes back, you could imagine that going back to B flat, and then the second tetrachord ends on dominant. So that's again that relationship we were talking about earlier about the 1 to the flat 5, and these 2 keys are all over the rest of the trio. So just looking at those bass notes, we can graph that on the Tonnetz that we saw earlier, and we find something really neat. It has that same dualistic relationship as major and minor. Just like we have C major and C minor, we have the tetrachord of the B flat minor bass chords. We have the B, F, G, A, and then we have the E minor region of the tetrachords where we have F sharp, G, A, and B. And they're really mirror images of each other. So what I did with this is I kept that so we can see which region we're in, and I filled in the rest. So here is the first chord, B minor. And so what I did, you have this big, bold red line.